Hi there, folks. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial in Substance Designer. We're going to be creating some wood grain. All right, let's get started. We're going to go to New, type in wood grain tutorial. That's fine. Leave it empty for the graph template. Width and height 1024 is fine. All right, we're going to start out with 4 Perlin noise zooms. First we're going to shrink them down because we don't need them that high, that big, excuse me. Each one also give it a different seed because we want them all to be unique. Okay. Now for each one we're going to add a levels and also bump the size up, back up to 1024 so that we get our detail back. Now we're going to adjust the levels so that it's only a few spots showing, sort of like that. That's pretty good. Yeah, something like that. Alright, same thing, copy and paste. We don't need to change the seed because there's nothing random going on here. And then we're going to blend those all together. So we've got one big output. Copy and paste. And there we are. Now this is going to be our knots. So we're going to blur this. Whoops. Blur it a bit. It's pretty good. Levels. We'll tweak that in a second. And slope blur grayscale. Now, if you know, in real wood, the knots sort of have a ripple effect, but they're mostly vertical. If you get me, you'll see in a second. Let's add a gradient, linear 1. Throw that up there as the slope. Samples up there. Change that to max. Type in for intensity 40. That's pretty good. Copy and paste. Repeat that slope blur. We want this going in an opposite direction, so let's just type -40. Why not? Actually, let's go with -80 something. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, now blend these back together. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's increase the samples a bit. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Actually, let's bump up the levels just a bit. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Alright, that's good. Okay, now we're going to feed back in our original knots. Set that to add, linear dodge. Because obviously for the wood knots, the center is the strongest part. Alright. That's pretty good. Alright, so behind this we're going to put the main what do you call it, the bulk of the wood grain. So let's start out with a white noise fast. Let's transform that. Height, put in 500 and do that a few times till we get just a bunch of vertical noise. Okay, let's blur this a bit. Just a smidge. And let's transform that and give it a bit more width. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, now we're going to warp this. Actually, we're going to do 2 warps, so let's add another one after that. First is going to be well, they're both technically going to be Perlin noise zoom, so let's plug those in now. Okay. Well, the first one is going to be pretty big, so we don't need a lot of detail, so let's change that to only 64 by 64. That's pretty good, yeah. And this is going to be a bit bigger, but not so big. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now we're going to blend this with something else. Now this next bit is, if you look at reference photos of wood, you'll know what I'm doing. Okay, it's these sharp little jaggedy things. All right, we're gonna take this same wood grain here and let's blend this with a noise. What noise should we pick? How about Clouds 3? Yeah, that's good. Why not? Set this to overlay. Yeah. And anisotropic. I can't even say that. I'm probably not saying it right, so everyone can laugh at me in the comments. Anisotropy, whatever. Want the intensity pretty high. That's pretty good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, but we want the anisotropy instead of 1, because that'll just give us pure vertical movement only, nothing horizontal. We want to lower it just a little, so 0.98, that's good. All right, we're going to blend this in. Let's set it to overlay, except we want it, actually let's change it to, no, let's leave it at that. This effect, if we carried on like this, would be way too strong. So we want to tone it down to almost that. And it's backwards, so we want to do a little switcheroo. There we go. You can't hardly see it here, but believe me, when we get to that point, you will see it. Okay. I missed a step. Let's warp this as well. And I'll tell you what, let's use the same Perlin noise zoom that we used before. What did I set it at there? 0.38. Let's do the same. Yeah, why not? Okay. Now let's blend these together, shall we? Take this and our main background and add it. It's pretty good. We're going to create a gradient dynamic. Choose that. And it's not doing anything right now. Be sure and change it to vertical because we have no input. So let's create an input, shall we? Let's go with tile random. Go back to find our gradient and plug that in to the pattern input and change it to pattern input. Get rid of the X and just have it Y amount. All these little splits here, we don't need them. Get rid of it. These darkening bits around the edges, what is that? Don't need that. Perfect. Let's get a bit of size random. There we go. Because this is an organic texture, we want a little bit of randomness always. All right, plug that into gradient, our gradient input, and it looks awful. Why is that? Okay, this does not look right. So I think I think the blur is not strong enough. So let's see if that's correct. See, remember this blur after our initial white noise? Let's crank it up and see what happens. Ah, that's more like it. Okay. Ooh, that is weird. All right, let's fix that. That is our slope blur. Let's add another anisotropic, etc., etc. I'll just call it that from now on. Set that to 90. Set the anisotropy all the way to 1. That's pretty good. That gets rid of those little jaggies that we got there, doesn't it? And if we go back to our end result, you see that should give us some nice clean. Oh yeah. Much better. Okay. Why is that quite so blurry? Maybe that needs a blur on it as well. Just a minor one. It's a bit better. That's pretty good, yeah. Okay. That is not. Wait a minute. What's. Oh. Okay. I plugged in the wrong one here, so instead of plugging it into your newly blurred one, we don't want that. We want the sharp one. Like that. Okay. Ah, here we are. Alright. Let's see the end result. That's it. That's it. Right, you see how there's these little sharp... Let's crank it up and see. All these little sharp lines, you see them? Let's put in a new noise. I don't like that. How about clouds 2? Is that any better? That's pretty good, yeah. Yeah, sure, why not? And you can see how there's these weird artifacts. Again, I think if you... Yeah, there we go. Because if you get rid of this too much, it just... You lose the effect entirely. But if you change it to 0.99... No, 0.98... Okay, 0.97. Ah, there we go. And then we can add it back in here. Not too much because it's a little bit goes a long way. That's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. Now, our last problem is you see these where our knots should be. We've got these weird little holes. That's because if we look in the previous one, these have become pure white. That means for the gradient dynamic, there's no information for it to go on, and it doesn't know what to do, so it just defaults to this color. But we're going to blend and create, we're going to create a new knot and blend it in to where that should be, okay? So let's take this, let's take our final knot output, and we're going to create a levels. Take that there. Now we just want the knot circles. So we're going to, it's pretty good, jam that over there. So if we switch back to our final output, this should line up pretty well with where that empty space is. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, now let's add a blur on there, not too much. And let's try a bevel. That's a bit too much. So let's, we want smoothing all the way. How does that look? Perfect. So again, we can't leave it like this. Otherwise, we're going to make another gradient dynamic just like we did before. But if we left it like this, pure white, it wouldn't know what to do. So we need to convert it to this. So that the gradient dynamic can say, oh, okay, it gets dark over here, and then it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and yeah, I know what to do. Right, so gradient dynamic, plug that in, and it's going to need an input again. So let's create a new tile, oops, random. Use the same gradient we used before. Change it to pattern input. Get rid of the splitting. can have a bit of random size. And we don't want it quite as busy as our main background one, which was 64. We don't want that many, so let's leave it at something like 8, 9, 10, something like that. Random bit of color. Okay. And nothing. It's because the gradient input position is empty. There we go. Okay, if you come across this and it doesn't work, that's why. Okay, we've got some nice new knot centers here. Some of them are alright. Let's actually increase this a bit. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, yeah. Alright, well, it's actually not good, but I'll explain why. It's because it's only 1024. So what we want to do is bump it up to 4K. And that looks a bit better, right? Well, part of it looks a bit better. Let's actually bump it up there. Leave that at 0. Okay, that's better. So we got, it's pretty good now, right? And now when we blend it back in, it'll get, switch that back around. Okay, so it's going to get shrunk back down to 1024, and it looks okay. It's nice and anti-aliased and everything, right? For our opacity mask, we want, what do we want? Let's copy this and duplicate it. This is the levels that we took from our, see, we made this as our mask, but let's sharpen it up a bit for the blending, for the opacity mask. And there we are. Now they're combined. This is what it was before. Now we got that. That's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. That's all right. And that's pretty much it. Now, obviously, there's a lot more you can do. There are some things that I don't quite like too much about it. But this is all stuff you can tweak. You just go back and mess with it. A lot of these things are... you make a little change and all of a sudden it's going crazy. So you have to tread carefully, but in fact I'm going to undo those 2 changes that I did. Okay, I think that's alright. Oops, I went too far. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the basic idea. You get something like this. Create a gradient map, a gradient dynamic, put in something that looks like this, and you get a nice, interesting wood effect that looks pretty natural. I mean, look at that. That looks good, right? Okay, so thank you very much.